Well, it has been a big year for the royal family, from the death of the Queen and the welcoming of a new king to the ongoing drama that is Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. To discuss all this now, I am joined by the wonderful Sarah Hewson, royal editor at Talk TV in the UK. Sarah, thanks so much for joining us. You're in Norfolk at the moment, near Sandringham, where the royal family spent Christmas. It was their first Christmas without the Queen, but it seems like they're keeping with her traditions, yes?
Yes, hello to you, James, and a very Merry Christmas, belated Merry Christmas, I should say, to everyone watching. The royal family, yes, they returned here to Norfolk, to the Sandringham estate, just a few miles down the road from where I am, for the first time since 2019. They've had a break because of the COVID pandemic, but it had been a family tradition for many, many years, since the Queen's father, in fact. And King Charles gathered the whole family together, around 50 of them, at the estate to celebrate Christmas. They celebrate with a black tie dinner on Christmas Eve, give their presents on Christmas Eve, as is the German tradition. And then we saw them walking to church, as they always do, a family parade along the lane to St Mary Magdalene Church, with crowds of people lining to watch them. So getting back to those traditions that the Queen was so fond of.
Well, that's fantastic to hear, but even Prince Andrew was there, and he walked to church in front of the public. Gotta ask, what kind of reception did he receive?
Yeah, I was really surprised, James, to see him making that public appearance walking to church with the family. Back in 2019, he didn't do it. He went to a private chapel service earlier in the morning with his mother. It could have gone really wrong, couldn't it? Because you can't control the reaction of the public. But this is a largely pro-monarchy crowd who turn out on Christmas morning and queue up to get their spot outside the church. And actually, he got a pretty warm, if muted, reception. He even had a joke with one member of the crowd. So I think they will be relieved at how that appearance went.
Yeah, I guess you'd have to be a special kind of person to get up early on Christmas morning to heckle somebody. So, you got that going for him. But King Charles delivered his first ever Christmas message this year as well. And his mother set a very high bar with those messages over the years. I know a lot of people here in Australia always loved watching those messages when they came out. But how did you rate the new king and his first Christmas message?
Well, it turned out to be a bit of a hit, James, because this was the most watched programme on British television on Christmas Day, and the most watched Christmas message since records began 2 decades ago. More than 10 million people tuned in to see King Charles. Look, it looked different to his mother's messages. He wasn't sitting behind a desk in a royal palace. He was standing in St George's Chapel, a poignant location close to where his mother and father were laid to rest. And it was potentially more political than his mother would have been. He addressed the cost of living crisis, and he also paid tribute to health service and public sector workers, many of whom have been out on strike lately. And he wanted to embrace all faiths. This wasn't just a message of Christian faith. He praised those of all faiths who had got together over the course of the last year to help those in need.
And I mean, the new king, he's, as when he was Prince Charles, of course, he was known for being very ecumenical and being about all faiths, and also being somewhat more political. How do you think people are going to receive, over the long run, a king who might be dipping his toe a little bit more in those sorts of waters?
Look, I think there has to be an expectation that someone who is in their 70s has a very different take to someone who came to the throne in their 20s. This is a man who feels things deeply, who is very passionate about things, but he has promised that he won't step into the political sphere, but I think he will still be a convener of people. And when it comes to his approach to all faiths, we know that is absolutely fundamental to how he wants to reign. And I think it sets the tone for what we might see in the coronation next year.
That's going to be pretty interesting to watch. But, of course, Charles didn't mention any of the drama surrounding Harry and Meghan in his Christmas message. Not that you would have expected him to do so. But I guess on another level, there is something of a case of what he didn't say speaks volumes, yes?
Yes, James, I wondered before the message if he might use it, as he did his first King's speech after he came to the throne, as an olive branch to Harry and Meghan. This speech was recorded 2 days before the second part of their documentary series aired, the more damaging part. but he didn't mention them at all. In fact, he kept the focus very much on the working royals. He wasn't, as the Queen was done, surrounded by family photos, so we didn't have any who's in and who's out. But he kept the focus very much on the work of the Prince and Princess of Wales, the Earl and Countess of Wessex, for example, Princess Anne. And I think that is the way he got round this.
Yeah, and I mean, speaking of Harry and Meghan, we've got to talk about the apology that they received over Jeremy Clarkson's column in The Sun, where he wrote all sorts of tongue-in-cheek, but a lot of people took it the wrong way stuff. What did they have to say about that? Is Jeremy Clarkson now on the outer? And has this actually been a way for them sort of to, I guess in a way, wrap themselves in the mantle of victimhood?
Look, I think what Jeremy Clarkson's article in The Sun did, where he talked about his visceral hatred for Meghan and wanting to see her paraded down the street naked while excrement was thrown at her, actually vindicated a lot of what they had said in the documentary about the things that had been written about them in the press. And Meghan had talked about the death threats that stemmed from the kind of coverage that she had received. It was a hugely controversial article. Jeremy Clarkson issued a kind of half apology. The Sun newspaper has also now apologised and said it was wrong to publish it, but that's been rejected by Harry and Meghan's spokespeople, who said it's nothing more than a PR stunt.
Indeed. I guess maybe he should stick to talking about cars in the future. But anyway, sticking with Meghan.
Cars and farming.
Cars and farming. The farming documentary was so much fun. But anyway, there's been another article floating around saying that Meghan is a narcissist. She's been listed as a narcissist by Politico magazine alongside the likes of Donald Trump and Elon Musk. Now, I don't know. I didn't need like a Nobel Prize in psychology to know that she might have some narcissistic tendencies. But what did you make of that one?
Yeah, this is another controversial article that's received a lot of backlash on social media as well. Meghan Markle compared, as you say, to the likes of Elon Musk, Donald Trump, Kanye West, or Ye, as he's now known, for being the most in love, the most socially aware, the most aggrieved. And the article talks about their overreach and people getting tired of their egotistical activities. It has been criticised, not just by supporters of Meghan, but widely in the press, and saying you cannot put Meghan in the same ranks as those. And we haven't had any response from the Sussexes, but I think, again, it all fits into their narrative about the way in which she is portrayed in the media.
Poor little rich girl indeed. Now, finally, before you go, I got to ask you, 2023, got to get you saying that, could give 2022 a run for its money in the big royal events stakes. In less than a minute's time, can you talk us through some of the key events coming up in the royal world next year?
Kicking off with a bang, January the 10th, we get Harry's book Spare out, and then looking ahead later in the spring, May the 6th is the coronation, and a whole lot more to come in between, James.
Wow. Well, that's as quick an answer as I could have expected. Thank you so much, Sarah Hewson. We'll be speaking to you a lot in the new year. Let me wish you a very happy new year and a belated Merry Christmas. Thank you so much, Sarah Hewson, for joining us tonight. We'll see you in the new year.